Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, and welcome to this week's Trump Watch. Well, there's been a lot to watch with respect to Donald Trump during the past week, and so let's dive right on in. One of the more humorous aspects of the Trump administration occurred this past week when he fired the woman who was directing the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm so happy we have a Bureau of Labor Statistics. Imagine. I mean, how did the nation survive for more than 100 years without a Bureau of Labor Statistics? But why did he fire this woman? Well, she came out with a report that showed that jobs were not growing at the rate that they were expected to be. Weak job numbers, I think, is the phrase they use. And Trump went ballistic. And so he's fired her because she's not supposed to do that. She's not supposed to report bad numbers. I mean, it reminds me of life in the Soviet Union when they would report bad numbers. And, of course, they would get sent off to the gulag or something. This woman just got fired. But, I mean, just classic. Kill the messenger when you don't like the message that the messenger is giving out. It's just absolutely fascinating. And one of the funniest aspects of this was some guy in the Washington Post wrote a commentary piece on this, and he compared it to a scale where you weigh yourself at home. And let's say you're trying to lose weight, and you come onto the scale one day and it shows that you've actually gained weight. Well, I mean, obviously the solution is you break the scale, because the scale is a bad scale for revealing the truth about your weight. And so he's gotten rid of this woman, and I'm sure he's going to replace her with somebody who's going to be sure to give the right job numbers, regardless of what the Bureau of Labor Statistics is reporting. So then, of course, there's also, during the past week, what's become pretty standard, the attacks on Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve. What's his nickname? Too late, that he's going to lower interest rates too late. And, of course, what Trump wants is that quick injection. I mean, this is the whole idea of having a central bank, that quick injection of paper money into the system, expansion of money and credit, and make it look like, oh, wow, things are really booming. My presidency is fantastic. And, of course, in the long run, this type of thing is a disaster. I mean, that's the whole idea of the booms and the busts, the booms and the busts, the booms and the busts, that you just do this injection of quick, easy money, and then all of a sudden the crash comes later on when people realize that it's not genuine prosperity, that is prosperity that's built on capital accumulation and trade and that sort of thing. It's just an artificial boost to enable public officials to say, oh, look at all the good things I'm doing with my economic policies. And so he's trying to set up a scapegoat, because he knows that his tariffs, Trump knows that his tariffs are very likely to create economic a recession, or maybe even a depression. I mean, that you've already seen this in the economy to a certain extent. People are tightening their belts. Prices are rising. The companies that are importing foreign goods are raising their prices. And of course, this is what we said from the very beginning. And Trump was saying, no, the foreign governments pay the tariffs. I'm fighting a trade war, and we're going to win the trade war, and it's these foreign governments that pay the tariffs, and isn't that great that we're causing them to pay our tariffs? It was ridiculous. It was like when he said, I'm going to build this wall across America, which has turned out to be like a Berlin Wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. I promise you, Mexico's going to pay for it. Well, Mexico didn't pay for it. The American taxpayers paid for it, and the American people are paying these taxes. And he was trying to get the companies, the American companies, to absorb these tariffs, these tax increases. And the companies are saying no. Many of them are just on a small profit margin. And this is the way tariffs always are. The cost ultimately is turned over to the buyer, and that's the consumers. And so consumers are already tightening their belts. That's the media is reporting that. They're stay-at-home vacations instead of going in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. Things are tightening up a little bit. Now, obviously it's not a full-blown recession, but I think what Trump is doing is preparing the groundwork so that if that recession does come, he's got scapegoats. I mean, he's always got the illegal immigrants. I mean, that's standard. They're the standard scapegoat because they can't defend themselves. But the other scapegoat is Powell. He can say, "Oh, this is all Powell. Too late, too late. He should have lowered interest rates a long time ago, and so it's all his fault. The tariffs have nothing to do with it." So it's an interesting strategy that he's got. Let's see what else is going on. Now, let me make another comment though about this monetary system. This, when it was set up, the idea is that the central bank be independent from the president for this very reason, because the president wants to play with the paper money system in a way that benefits him politically. So that's how you get in all these other nations, or so many other nations, hyperinflation, because the government is spending out the gazoo, promising people free this and free that and free healthcare and free education and so forth. And instead of taxing people, which is ordinarily how government raises its money to pay for all its programs, they just print the money and say, okay, we'll build this school and we'll build this healthcare center and we'll build this. And they just print the money and, oh, look, vote for us. We brought you all these freebies. And everybody cheers it. I mean, it really works because people start cheering and the press starts cheering. And then all of a sudden, the prices start rising across society in response to this debasement of the currency. And they just blame it on the people raising the prices, that they're the bad people. They're the price gougers, the profiteers, the bourgeois swine, capitalist pigs, and so forth. And so it's a perfect scheme, but it gives you an idea of why our ancestors, the framers, put that restriction in the Constitution that this had to be a gold coin, silver coin monetary system. They didn't want any paper money, and that's why it's in there expressly that the state shall make nothing except gold coins and silver coins legal tender. And then the federal government was given the power to coin money. Okay, coin money is not paper money. Coin money is gold coins, silver coins. And that was our system for more than 100 years. And so obviously the president couldn't expand the paper money system to suit his purposes, lower interest rates stuff. There wasn't a central bank. It was a gold coin, silver coin standard. Now, from a libertarian standpoint, it's not ideal. An ideal would be a free market monetary system where government has nothing to do with money, a separation of money and the state. But it was a good second best because governments couldn't tamper with this. They couldn't inflate the currency. How are they going to inflate gold coins and silver coins? They have to go find the gold first. It's not like a printing press where you just crank up the printing press and start printing the money. You can't crank up a printing press and print out gold coins. And so they were constrained. And of course, some of them hated it. I mean, they wanted to spend the money, spend. But they in order to spend money, they had to collect it in taxes, which of course creates revolts and it causes people to vote against people on election day. So when Roosevelt comes in, I mean, this is the perfect opportunity that you nationalize gold with no constitutional amendment. You call it an emergency, and then you go on the paper money system permanently. I mean, you would think that this was a temporary Great Depression measure. No. It was a permanent change, no constitutional amendment, upheld by the Supreme Court, and we're still living with it today, along with the Federal Reserve that had been established in 1913. And so here we are with this gigantic, horrific, dishfunctional monetary system. Epstein case, okay, new development, very interesting development. Ghislaine Maxwell, she, of course, has that meeting with the Justice Department. I presume her lawyer was there too. I don't think they've reported what was said at that meeting, which is kind of interesting to me. What's wrong with just reporting what was done? I mean, you would think it would have been recorded, the interview. I think they met with her in 1 day or 2 days or something. And I don't see what would be wrong with disclosing what she said. What's the problem with that? But in any event, soon after that meeting, she was transferred to a minimum security prison. And I can only assume that means a Club Fed, one of the comfortable federal penitentiaries in the system. And so why is this? I mean, this woman gets convicted and sentenced to 20 years in jail for trafficking in underage girls. I mean, it's like horrific. And now she's presumably at a club fed. Well, what's going on here? Well, I think to me, it's clear that what happened was that in this interview, she made it clear that she's going to pin it all on Epstein. It was all Epstein. And they probably have her down on tape, committed to that position. And my hunch is that you're going to see a pardon. That's my opinion before too long. Because she is not going to be willing to spend the next 20 years of her life in jail. And I think it would be problematic to kill her. And so they have to see what she's going to say. And once they tie her down to statements saying, oh, this was only Epstein, then they're in the clear. They can pardon her and no problem. And if she then breaks the deal and after she's pardoned starts telling the truth, which I don't think she'd ever do. I think that she knows they'd really kill her then. Or they'd figure out some other way to target her with some criminal prosecution and some other matter. I think she'll just keep her mouth shut, even afterward. And even if she did start talking and revealing everything she knows, they would just call her a liar and say, oh, she's just making this up. Here we have it on a tape recording. And they would probably, when they did this interview, the smart thing would have been to swear her in, like an affidavit or something like that with a court reporter there, so that she would be subject to a perjury prosecution if she then later got released from jail and changed her story. So this is all my opinion, but I think that's where this is headed. And I wrote a piece on this about this guy Michael Townley. Very similar situation. This was the guy that set the bomb in the car that blew up in Washington D.C., killing Orlando Letelier, who was a high official in the Salvador Allende regime that, of course, the national security establishment ousted or helped oust with a coup there and install a right-wing military dictatorship. And then a young woman named Ronnie Moffett, she was in the car too. She got killed. And they proved that this guy Townley had set the bomb. I mean, this guy had been trained to be able to create a bomb and then how to install it. And I'm almost certain it was one that he could detonate remotely. And it was done at the direction of DINA, this Gestapo-like organization that the CIA was involved with in Chile. And they traced the guy. And they found out, that he had done it. They pressured the Pinochet regime to extradite him. Well, in my opinion, he had CIA written all over him. But the mainstream press and the historians say, oh, no, we've checked the records and he's not CIA at all. Well, like what? For one thing, they haven't released all their records. They still have thousands and thousands of records that are still unreleased for some reason. I mean, it's like how many years ago, 40 years ago or so, and they still won't release those records. But they're not going to put anything in writing on this guy Townley that he was a CIA operative. But we know that Townley was working for this DINA, and we know that the head of DINA was a paid asset of the CIA. So there was a nice little cozy relationship. And so they strike a deal where Townley gets the sweetheart deal just like Epstein got from the feds. He is incredible. He ended up serving 5 years in jail. Cold-blooded murderer. This guy set the bomb off. He installed it. And they let him out after 5 years. And I don't know. I couldn't find anything about his. I've never been able to find out what penitentiary he was in. But my hunch it was a club fed. And maybe they even let him out of jail during the day like they did with Epstein. But in any event, they put him in the Federal Witness Protection Program. So, what? A witness? He's the criminal, the main guy here that set the bomb off. But they protected him, put him in the Federal Witness Protection Program, gave him a new identity. He and his family are living somewhere. No doubt they're paying him a stipend. The guy's living high, and they watched him. And so one of the reasons I think he's CIA is because the CIA takes care of its own, and there's no question that Townley got taken care of. And so when I see this thing with Ghislaine Maxwell, it reminds me a lot of Michael Townley. All right, so let me see what else we got going on here during the past week. Well, we've got the tariffs. Of course, they're always in the news. Watching what Donald Trump does on the tariffs. I mean, that's like a full-time job probably. But one of the most interesting aspects of Tariff Man's activities are the tariffs that are imposed on Brazil. Now, this is not because of a trade surplus or because he's negotiating a reduction in tariffs or anything like that. This is because Trump doesn't like a judicial proceeding that's taking place against the former president, who is a right-winger, good friend of Trump's, at least, politically. And they're going after him for supposedly initiating a coup that would prevent the new president from taking office, who defeated Bolsonaro in the last election, and that Bolsonaro would then stay in office. And so they apparently have evidence that he was doing this thing, or supposedly doing this type of thing. So they've indicted him, and they're prosecuting him. But Trump is furious about this. I mean, he wants them to dismiss the charges. I mean, here is the president of the United States telling the people in a foreign country what they need to be doing and not doing with respect to their judicial system. I mean, presumably their judicial system is semi-independent. I'm not really sure, maybe not, but regardless, that's their judicial system. But Trump is saying, no, you're going to do it the way I want this done. Now, let's assume that their judicial system is independent. He's saying to the judges, you need to dismiss these charges, or I'm going to impose these tariffs. And so he's imposed, I forget what the percentage is, extremely high. The president of Brazil said something like, no gringo president is going to tell us what to do here in Brazil. So he's standing fast. But so is Trump. Trump's saying, no, you're going to do it the way I want it done there on your judicial system, at least with respect to your case against Bolsonaro, and therefore I'm imposing tariffs on you. I mean, this is quite incredible. And of course, no congressional consent at all. He doesn't go to Congress and ask for permission to impose higher tariffs on Brazil. And let's keep in mind that he's really imposing taxes on the American people. He's saying, if you don't stop prosecuting Bolsonaro, I'm going to tax the American people if they buy goods from Brazil. I mean, if this is not perverse, I don't know what is. I mean, I don't know, what does he expect the American people to go to Brazil and try to get that prosecution stopped so to avoid the imposition of higher taxes? I mean, it's just quite incredible. I mean, the good news is that a federal court of appeals, I forget which one, is determining the constitutionality of Trump's tariffs. Because the way he gets away with this whole thing, this is really dictatorial conduct 101. That ordinarily in our system of government, you have three branches of government. The legislative branch enacts the laws, the president enforces the laws, and the Supreme Court decides whether the laws are constitutional. Well, here the Congress many years ago said, okay, we'll keep that system, but in the event of an emergency, we're delegating our legislative powers to you. Well, for one thing, I don't think you can do that constitutionally. I mean, suppose the Supreme Court said, well, in an emergency, we'll let the president have his own courts. It's ridiculous. But in any event, so Trump says, oh, okay, emergency. And so he says, tariff here, tariff there, 100%, 200%, 3%. I mean, he's just setting tariffs willy-nilly without going to Congress each time. And so the Court of Appeals is determining whether this is constitutionality. The lower court, I forget what it's called, it's a special court, it declared it unconstitutional. Interestingly enough, they stayed the order pending the outcome on appeal. But at the oral arguments, I read an article that said that the judges seem to be leaning toward upholding the decision of the lower court to declare what Trump is doing with his terrorists unconstitutional. So that would be interesting. Of course, the immigration enforcement continues apace, and I'm reading more and more articles about how the foreigners are no longer coming to the United States, including the tourists. I mean, we can see the diminution in numbers of illegal immigrants, but you know, it's never permanent. I mean, as soon as Trump leaves office, you'll see another flux, another flood of immigrants into the office. I mean, into the country. I've seen this all my life. You know, I grew up on the border, and I've seen these ebbs and flows where the immigrants come, then they stay away. They come, they stay away. And so, as long as there's a demand for labor in the United States, and there certainly is. I mean, you see more and more businessmen hurting big time with all these raids and losing their workers and so forth. But immigrants will come as long as it's just the laws of supply and demand. And but there's a lot of people that are saying we don't want to come to the United States because it's ugly. It's like North Korea. North Korea builds this sealed border there with South Korea. Well, nobody they're an isolated country. They don't want to interact with the world. But no, the world doesn't want to go there anyway. I mean, you don't see South Koreans trying to get over that border. Why? Because the police state that is necessary to enforce the system inevitably expands nationwide. And that's what we're seeing here now with troops all over the country and cities, and violent raids on American businesses, and prosecution of American employers. I mean, this is what a police state's all about: attacks on due process of law, habeas corpus. You end up with a police state nationally, and that's a very ugly country. It's a country nobody wants to come to, and so your whole sealed border becomes superfluous anyway, because you've made the country so ugly that nobody wants to come anyway, including the illegal immigrants. So, okay, let's go on to Russia and Ukraine. There's some indication that Putin is saying that he'll meet with Zelensky of Ukraine. That, you know, one of the most fascinating aspects of this is how Trump has turned on Putin. I mean, it's so easy to forget that Trump got impeached. Remember the Robert Mueller report? He got impeached for supposedly being an agent of Putin, an agent of Russia. I mean, that's how close people aligned them, Putin and Trump, at one time. I mean, remember, Robert Mueller's going to save us. Robert Mueller's going to save us. Oh, yeah. So, 1 year I had to put up with this. Robert Mueller. And then Mueller comes out after extensive investigation and says, I didn't find anything. But there was no doubt that there was this good relationship between Putin and Russia. I thought that maybe the U.S.-Russian relations were finally going to, stabilize, where we don't have this forever, permanent anti-Russia hostility that is ingrained in all of us. Well, not all of us, some of us, through the national security state. I mean, you can see it with China too. Hate China. And all because China was doing well. You see, you're supposed to hate another country if it starts doing well, because it becomes a threat to your empire. It becomes a rival, a competitor. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, at the center of all this is envy, hatred, somebody else doing well. We should be celebrating when other people are doing well, especially poor people and nations that have a lot of poor people. But in any event, so now Trump has gone against Putin, and he's now aligned himself with Zelensky. Now, remember that meeting in the White House with Vance and Zelensky and Trump? I mean, it was a very unpleasant meeting where they put Zelensky through the ringer. So it was clear that they were siding with Russia. In fact, Trump even said Ukraine started this war. Well, it was Ukraine and NATO that started the war. But now, all of a sudden, it's the exact opposite. He's putting sanctions on Russia, saying that if you don't get to the negotiating table, if you don't do this and this and this, I'm going to put sanctions. Well, sanctions mean that he's going to try to impoverish the Russian people even more. He's trying to make life difficult. This is a 180-degree turnaround. I mean, this is, I think, one of the most phenomenal developments of his administration. Why is this? Well, only he can tell, but in my opinion, it's what I've said for the last several years. It's not Trump running the federal government. It's not the Congress. It's not the federal courts. It's not Biden. It's not any of those. It's the national security branch of the government that runs the federal government, especially in foreign affairs. Now, we don't like to confront that as Americans. We want to play this little charade that, oh, no, Jacob, it's the same thing as when we were operating as a limited government republic. It's not. We are a national security state. North Korea is a national security state. Egypt's a national security state. Pakistan's a national security state. China, Russia, Cuba, and the United States. And in a national security state, government is force. And the real force of this government is in the Pentagon, the CIA, and the NSA. And they have been running this show for a long time now. And I think that's what's going on here. In my opinion, it is they who are saying, you need to, Mr. President, align yourself with Ukraine. You see, because it's the national security state operating through NATO that started this war. They're the ones that provoked Russia by moving NATO all the way east, absorbing Warsaw Pact countries, after promising not to do so. But at the end of the Cold War, it appeared that the Cold War was finally over. There was going to be a peaceful coexistence with Russia, friendly coexistence, but the national security establishment said, absolutely not. We need Russia as an official enemy, and China, we need that Cold War. This is how we get our money in the national security state, our tax-funded largesse. And so that's when they broke the deal that the president, the executive branch, had made. You see, that's how powerful they are. They just broke that deal and said, to heck with that deal. We're in charge here. We decide deals. And so they used NATO to go all the way up to Russia's border, up to Ukraine, until Russia said, and Russia kept telling them, if you keep doing this and keep doing this, and you keep absorbing these countries, you get closer with your nuclear missiles to our borders, then we're going to invade Ukraine if you threaten to do that. And of course, that's what they threatened to do. And Biden was saying, oh, well, I had so much good intelligence, they were going to invade, and I'm a smart guy and all this. It was ridiculous. They told him they were going to invade if they threatened to absorb Ukraine into NATO. So the only real solution to this war is abolish NATO. I mean, because how can you trust the U.S.? Putin makes a deal that says, okay, Ukraine won't join NATO. That deal could be broken in the middle of the night, and undoubtedly would be broken in the middle of the night, where the next morning Russia finds U.S. nuclear missiles right on its borders, and then what happens? So the real solution to this is abolish NATO. So that's where we are on that. There's also China. Let me just mention that there was a time when China was doing extremely well. While the U.S. was bogged down in Afghanistan, China was going around the world and making friends and helping public works projects. I mean, all socialist kind of stuff, lending money and stuff. And they saw that as a threat to the U.S. empire. U.S. officials did. I mean, that's how empires work. They see the rise of a potential empire, a competitive empire, and they want to be the only empire. After the Cold War, they were the only empire left, and that's the way they want it. So when they saw China doing this, they had to make it an adversary, a rival, and all this, instead of just celebrating, hey, people are doing well in China. And this, again, is the national security state. They see this thing as a rival to their imperial control all over the world. And so I think that's where this animosity is rooted. In my opinion, that's where all this sanctions and other stuff like the embargo against Cuba and things, it's all rooted in the sense that we've got to make certain that we remain the sole remaining empire. And sure, it hurts America too when you're imposing these tariffs and you have these trade wars. But since we're a larger, more prosperous society, we can handle it better than a society that's just breaking out from the bounds of poverty. They have a much more difficult time in these kind of trade wars and so forth. In fact, there's one country. I mean, it was just tragic, just absolutely tragic. I forget the name of it. It's an African country. They are so poor. I forget how much their monthly pay is, but it's like horrible, like $100 a month or something like that. And Trump's tariffs have just decimated him. At first, he put on 50% tariffs, and all these poor people, all the private companies that were building tennis shoes there and stuff, using these low cost labor to do it, they stopped producing tennis shoes. So immediately, the companies there laid off their workers. And I mean, this article was saying people were just anguishing there. How do they feed their kids? How do they educate their kids? And they're just out of a job overnight. Now, then Trump later lowered the tariff, but it was too late. That these companies did not get geared back up and started working again. And it's just devastating, these tariffs, not only to the United States, which is, the devastation is relatively small compared to these other countries, and also unnecessary. We should be celebrating when every nation around the world is doing well, and when poor people around the world are doing extremely well. And of course, when you do something like that, you create the incentive for people to flee the starvation, come to the United States, and then everybody goes ballistic because the illegal immigrants are coming into the United States. So that's where the tariffs, along with the drug war and stuff, actually make the situation with respect to immigration worse from the standpoint of people that are all up in arms over illegal immigration. All right, so that's this week's Trump Watch. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you, as always, for your great support of the Future of Freedom Foundation. We're very honored and we're very grateful. And I'll see you all next week.